Okay, welcome everybody to our Living Her Legacy Second Education Speaker Series, Women's Voices, a conversation with transformative women. We are grateful for your time today to join us again for this very important speaker series, hearing women's voices and women's stories. I'm Patty Smith, the Executive Director of Living Her Legacy. And I'm sorry I have to find my cursor to get us moving along. This education speaker series was initiated from my experience at a Black Lives Matter protest in Old Town Fort Collins in June. I have heard many stories from friends about their experiences, yet this protest initiated by CSU students saddened me beyond any sadness I'd ever felt before. The story they ended with about a young mother giving birth to her first son and what she had to teach him every stage about growing up and his upbringing, about how to stay safe as a Black boy and a Black man, was so impactful. I drove home in tears, wondering how could I bring women's voices to a broader audience for Black Lives Matter and women in general. And the speaker series was born. Our speaker series was about the suffragette movement and the courageous women involved and those that lived in Fort Collins. We partnered with the Fort Collins Historic Preservation Services Department, and the recordings for all speakers are on our YouTube channel. There's a few missing, but we'll get those up here shortly. And our YouTube is Living Her Space Legacy, or you can search for Women's Voices, and that pulls it up as well. Living Her Legacy is a historic public art exhibit project that has just received nonprofit status with the IRS in September. We're so very excited. So we are now a nonprofit and not just a project. Our mission is recognizing women with ties to the city of Fort Collins who have contributed to the fabric of our community, recognizing women's accomplishments to inspire girls' futures. We have selected 48 notable women with ties to our community to be recognized as Legacy Honorees in our art education exhibit. We installed our marquee art education information window August 30th on the north side of Coopersmith's Poolside Brewery to let the community know what is coming. So please stop by when you're in Old Town to read about this remarkable project, recognizing women to inspire girls' futures. If you would like to stay connected to learn more about this event, our programs, or an upcoming speaker series, we invite you to join us. And I did put a link in the chat box for you. It's a bit.ly link, so you'll find that in both the chat box for Facebook and on the YouTube channel. And so today I had the pleasure to introduce you to a dear friend of mine, Angela Carter, owner of Citrus Salon, in Fort Collins. And Angela shared her bio with me, and I will share it with you now before we get into our conversation. Angela said, I was born in Oakland, California, and given up for adoption at birth. My parents got me at 3 months old. My parents were born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. At the time, my mother was an elementary school teacher, and my father was a physicist at Lawrence Livermore Labs. I was the youngest of 4 children and the only child adopted. At the age of 2 years old, my family moved to Laramie, Wyoming, where I was adopted. I realize now that my parents were ahead of their time. Shortly after moving to Laramie, my parents started In Situ Inc. I probably didn't say that right.
Oh, In Situ.
Oh, In Situ. Okay, thank you. A company that made instruments that test groundwater. Growing up in Laramie, I dealt with a lot of bullying. Being one of very few children adopted, as well as being a multiracial brown child, there was really very few people who identified or understood me. I'm grateful now that my parents invested a lot of time and money in my betterment, whether it was therapist, camp, sports, or church activities. It gave me an outlet to find my voice and develop personal interests and relationships. All the while growing up in a family where my parents taught my siblings and I about community involvement, the environment, and faith. For part of my elementary school, I attended Catholic school where we lived, and in middle school, I attended a school connected to the University of Wyoming, where I found teachers who took the time to help me cultivate a curiosity for cultural enrichment and self-discovery, something that would be good for all children to learn as they grow up. The University Lab School facilitated speakers from government to science club trips across the country. Oh, how exciting. In high school, I once again found my voice, this time by having a column in the high school newspaper. Writing became a passion of mine. After graduating from high school, I decided to go to beauty school. Today, I've been doing hair for 26 years. I've had 3 salons. I'm grateful for having a career I love and has given me the freedom to parent my 3 kids, mostly as a single parent. I started Citrus Salon in 2007. Citrus Salon was voted best salon in LA Magazine. That was an incredible business. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the line. That was a great day. For almost 8 years, I had a commission salon where I trained stylists and built an incredible business. In that time, we won Best Downtown Windows Display for a consecutive 7 years. Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. We also had a cut it out benefit where my stylist and I donated a day of haircuts to the Safe House. Today, 6 of the stylists that worked for me own successful businesses. After my father died of Alzheimer's and my family moved to Fort Collins, 8 years later, I moved my children and Citrus Salon to Fort Collins. I downsized my business to booth rental and focused on my children. In the past 9 years, I've continued raising my children, buried my mother, found my biological family, and continued to grow Citrus Salon in the lovely Fort Collins community. And we're so glad that you ended up moving here. So we got to know you better.
Me too. Me too. You were one of the first people I met, actually.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah.
For our guests, if you have questions or comments, please enter them in the chat box. And when we complete our discussion, I will share your questions with Angela. Angela, I have a few questions to ask you as we begin our conversation this afternoon. Please share your upbringing and your background with us.
I grew up with, it's interesting because today is my father's birthday, which is I'm so grateful you asked me to do this today. It's a great day in America on top of it. Yeah. So, I grew up with amazing parents, and at the time, I don't think I really understood how amazing they were. My father, both of my parents grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They were the oldest of their families. And my father grew up in, my grandmother had one of the first natural foods grocery stores I'd ever heard of she was in her late 50s, and she'd be over 100 if she was alive today. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with, and my father started in situ when I was 2 years old, and in Laramie, Wyoming. And I grew up with people all over the world at my dinner table. My mother was a teacher, but she became a stay-at-home mom from the age, I think from when we moved to Laramie, actually. So, and she was very involved. So at least a couple times a week, we would go to a nursing home and sing and do church and visit the people. And I can remember as a little kid dancing in the living room to Broadway music on top of the coffee table before the internet, before PlayStations were invented. And playing church, and my parents were very involved in the community, and people from all over, my father was an international businessman, so people from all over the world were coming to our dinner table probably every couple weeks. At the time, my dad had a company in Australia, Denver, and Laramie. And some of the things that he invented, he's referenced in books in Columbia University. And unfortunately, he had Alzheimer's when that happened. So I don't know if he was fully aware of it, but I grew up in a great community, church every Sunday. And not even so much just the church part, but the community that was created, that today I'm still friends with so many of those people in parts of my life. So
what a wonderful upbringing.
I'm really grateful.
That's very exciting. So Thank you. So our next question is, who were your role models growing up, and how did they impact your life?
Great question. I've had a lot of different role models. Probably one of my first role models growing up was my mother. You know, she cared for her community. She actually was one of the founders of hospice in Laramie. She went back to school when I was in 4th grade to be a nurse, and she was the oldest of her family. And her mother died 2 weeks before she graduated from high school. So my cousins think of her as a mother. And she helped me raise my daughter. I think also there's been a lot of different people, teachers that have come into my life, people that I've worked for. Rita Bellino, she owns a salon in Aspen, and she's the mother of 4 kids. 3 of them own salons, successful salons. And when I worked for her, when I had 2 little kids in Denver, my husband was in culinary school. And I just watched her grind and realized that you could be a mom and be a businesswoman at the same time. And I watched her inspire me and so many other people, so many fantastic hairdressers.
Mhm.
She's
Oh, that's
one of my
wonderful.
greatest role models. Yeah.
Uh-huh. How exciting.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your daughter. How old are your children?
So I have 3 children. Well, I actually have 5 children because I have 2 stepchildren.
Mhm,
And so my oldest child, Liza, she's 24.
mhm,
She's student teaching in Loveland during the pandemic.
mhm,
And she also is a manager at a gym that she started working at in high school. And she's a kind of a celebrity dog sitter and babysitter in the
Oh,
community.
how nice.
Yeah. And then my son Isaiah, he just moved back. I sent him away to Mississippi to live with his father for a year. And I have to tell you, it worked. He came back. I'm so incredibly grateful. Like, I mean, I all hands off, let him figure it out because he really didn't want to listen to me.
Mhm,
But he and I are so close, and there's a light in his eye. He's only been back about a month, and he's an incredible rapper. Which, when he told me that he wanted to be a rapper, I kind of asked, well, does that come with medical? Or,
mhm,
I mean, that's just how I was raised. But
mhm,
he actually, you never know. You might say, I know his mother, that
mhm.
famous rapper.
Right.
So, and then I have a 16-year-old stepson who's recently moved in with us, and just an incredible kid, just working hard in school, trying to find his way, and doing a great job. And an 11-year-old son, Savion. I have a 13-year-old stepdaughter, Jada. She lives in Pennsylvania, and an 11-year-old, an 11-year-old son who's
Mhm,
going to the Cultural Enrichment Center and finding a passion for music, and really, honestly, um, arguing with me every day he has to work school online. So,
right. Yeah, the school online is such a challenge, not only for children, but for parents. And as we talk about, digress just a minute about COVID and the challenges for everybody, there are unfortunately many women who are having to quit their jobs and leave the
yes,
workforce to be able to help their children get through school and raise their children as well. So it certainly is challenging times for everybody, to say the least.
yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. So our next question is, what does it mean to you to be a full participant in society?
I love this question. I think that's one of the greatest things that I learned from my father, whether it was Earth Day, where we'd all have in situ t-shirts and be cleaning up the highway and different properties. Or it was my father would he donated computers, all of his computers, to St. Lawrence when I went to St. Lawrence.
Mhm,
Um, and it changed them. People tell me still how they were so excited to have that when
mhm,
computers were very new at the
mhm,
time. Um, I think that we have to be citizens of the world. And I think that in this pandemic, through this incredibly hard time, we have to, it can be big things or it can be little things. It can be going to the grocery store and smiling at someone,
yes.
helping someone put their cart away.
Mhm,
um, Someone in front of you is short, eat $5, you give it to them. That's how we build each other up, because I believe that we're one collective um, force, and we forget that if one of us hurts another person, we're connected. So if one hurts, the collective hurt.
mhm,
And I think we've seen that in this pandemic. And I think that It's easy to ask yourself what you can do. Um, but I think that it's really about being your best self, being
Mhm.
kind. Um, and, you know, it does help to, right now, when you see someone homeless on the street and you have a little bit of money in your pocket, giving it to them
Mhm.
because you don't know and it's not yours to judge. And
Right.
and I think also just in whatever vocation that you choose in life, I think it's really important to choose a path that's going to help other people in some way.
Mhm.
So, and if you
Yeah,
do something you love, I think that can automatically happen.
I agree with you. And as you
Mhm.
talk about being connected, one of the and I've lived in Fort Collins since 1975, so I should have learned this
Wow.
a long time ago. But we're going to do a fifth grade role model mentor art workshop after COVID when we can get together. That's one of our education programs with fifth grade girls and adult female participants that will visit with each other. But why I bring this up is because when you talk about the collective and all everybody being connected, one of the things I learned from my artist Trish Murtha in Loveland, who's going to facilitate this and I'll help her, was that um, we're going to tear newspapers because they're going to do an art project after they visit and get to know each other. But we were going to tear newspaper and put it on the paper that they're going to create artwork on based on what they've learned visiting together and learning about some of our legacy honorees. But we're tearing the newspaper because it looks like aspen trees. And she told me that aspen trees, when they grow in a clump or in a big area, they all their roots coalesce together underground. So it's one
Oh,
big family. So
yeah.
I had not learned that in all the hiking I've done and all the time I've lived in Fort Collins. But as you talk about us being a collective society that's all connected, so is nature all connected. And we know that with our faith background as well. But I thought
Yeah.
that was very interesting to learn that about aspen trees.
Yeah. It's because then we're connected to not only are we connected as people, but we're connected to all living, to everything that's living, everything around us, the energy, everything.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, that's why it's so important to take care of our planet, right?
Yes, it certainly is. So thank you for that. So my next question is, are there any movements you are or have been involved in? And if so, what have they meant to you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think the biggest movement that I've been involved in is just this election and Black Lives Matter. And
Mhm.
for me, Black Lives Matter, it was very simple. There are young Black people that have been murdered senselessly. And um, I think that for me, it was simple. I have children. I mean, I flew my
Mhm.
son back from Mississippi because he had just gotten in some little trouble at the time. He had a warrant out for his arrest, and he because he didn't come back to court and kind of lied to me. So I brought him back anyway because I didn't want him out on the streets with a simple warrant over something stupid
Mhm.
and being in danger. So I also think that through this election, it's a great day today, right? Because today we found out that Biden won. And I think this is a lot of people have been suffering with COVID and with racial injustice and the injustice towards women and just the ugly things that have been said, um, unfortunately, by this president. And I think you can see it in people hurting. And I'm so proud I had so many texts this morning that were like, we did it. We
Mhm.
did it as a collective. Look at what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia, where
Mhm.
she signed up Black voters that had created a coalition for signing up Black voters. And um, the work that she's still doing, like hitting the streets, really believing in justice. And there
Mhm.
were times where I thought, how am I going to live in a world with all of this, with our leader being such an angry, hateful, dishonest human being? And I got up Wednesday morning and I sobbed. And and then to sit in front of the TV and to be cutting hair and asking people, what are the numbers? But people came out and voted. And even if somebody was voting for Donald Trump, because there are many people that I love that really believe that Donald Trump should have won, and still, may always believe that, people voted. People voted that never voted before. And the greatest thing about it is no matter who won, I hope that we have a message that we understand in this country that our voice and our vote matters. And now we have to heal. We have to heal and come together and love everyone and understand what it was in this country that truly divided us so that we can come back together as Americans. So for me, that has been, I've been involved in a lot. I've gone to the Women's March, and my dad even was very politically involved. So I've been a part of a lot of different movements, and even the movements you and I have done for women in Zonta, right?
Right.
I mean, that's connected us to this moment. So, but I just think we should all people in this country need to give themselves a hand for fighting for what they believed in and fighting for justice, because that's what being an American is about. So,
right. Well, and the question that I asked you before about what does it mean to be a full participant in society, participation is the key word in there. We aren't here to sit on the sidelines. We're here to participate. And that's what democracy is all about. So, so thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
So our next question for you is, what are the challenges and opportunities that have influenced you in pursuit of your personal and professional goals?
I think, to be honest, it isn't easy. Probably the hardest thing I've ever done has been a parent. And I don't know if children really understand how hard you have to work to create a life for them and for yourself. And I think that, people say to each of us as women, I don't know how you did it. And I think often, if we're really honest, we don't really know how we did it either sometimes, right?
Right, it's one day at a time.
Oh, man. And, oh, woman.
Yes, right.
Oh, women.
Yes.
So I feel like that, if and being truly transparent, that has not been easy. It's not easy to raise young people to be happy, productive people who care about their community. It's challenging. I think the other thing is that it's challenging to just figure out in your life who you are and to find the confidence and to get up even when life is rough. So, I mean, there's a lot of, we could put out a spreadsheet about the different challenges, and we're going to see a lot of those challenges right now with COVID for small businesses that we really need to support at Christmas this year. Little plug there for small businesses. But I think that when it comes down to it, I think another challenge is finding balance in life so that you can go the long run. You know, when I moved to Fort Collins, I thought of the life of a business, and I decided to stretch that out a little bit and work on also being available for my children. Because the first round I wasn't available. I hired other people to raise my children. And so it's a sacrifice to find that balance and to find out that joy and success, it's not really wrapped up in the things you have and the money you have, but also just to know that pushing through, that maybe you're inspiring someone else and, seeing the bigger picture, staying on track on the hard days,
Right. Well, and as you and I are in different age groups, so my boys are grown up with families, And so one of the main challenges I see that's different today for you with your children is social media that we didn't have.
Oh yeah.
We didn't
Yeah.
have that to deal with.
Mm,
We had a different set of challenges. Um, I mean, we still have some of the same challenges. Raising children is challenging, no matter how you look at it,
yeah.
many days. But yeah, social media to me is a big additional challenge for parents today, I think.
Oh, social media, video games.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of the people that have made the technical devices we use don't let their kids use them.
Right.
Um, and fine, but I'm sure there's a silver lining where these kids are learning things that, I mean, look how hard it took for us to get on this computer.
Right.
If
Yes.
in here, he would have just clicked 3 things and we would have been in like 20 minutes ago,
Right.
So, I mean, but the other part is that social media, finding the balance of the good, the positive things and the negative things, and being able to see through the fake part of social media
Mhm.
and remembering about what it really feels and looks like to be human, and that's the norm, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So thank you for that. Um, so my last question for you today is, what advice would you share with a young woman growing up today?
Yeah, I was thinking about this on the way over. I think that, first of all, I think that a lot of women are raised with shame,
Mhm.
and shame is not a good place. And I think that if you can learn to silence those voices of shame, and I think also it's really important to sit with yourself every morning
Mhm.
quietly
Mhm.
so that you can hear your voice, whether you have to get up an hour before everyone gets up or 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Um, there's a list of things that have happen, help a person to become um, in their full capacity.
Mhm.
And I think hearing your voice is big. I think also creating a community is really important. Um, if you have, and you, I think it's really important to have a community of different types of people,
Mhm.
but people that have what you want in your life that maybe are a step ahead of where you want to be, so
Mhm.
that you're always aspiring and being inspired. Um, I think it's important to forgive yourself when you make mistakes and to be able to remember your path, and to ask for help when you need it. And
Mhm.
probably the biggest thing for women, um, two big things. My mother told me to not grow up looking for someone to take care of me. And
Mhm.
I think even if you meet somebody in your life, to do it when you're whole, to look for the person that has that list of all the things you want, but really to be that person
Mhm.
of everything you want. And if you can take care of yourself, you bring more to the table. And I think that's a narrative that as women, many of us have worked really hard to change, um, is finding the balance. But there's also the balance of allowing people to help you when
Mhm.
you need that help, because you find strength in that as well. Um, and to be, I think also just never give up, never
Mhm.
give up. Tomorrow will be a brighter day. Um, and to do what you love, because if you do what you love, you'll be successful at it. And that's an
Mhm.
Oprah tip.
Yeah. Yes.
It doesn't matter. Whatever it is you love, if you do it and you do it to the best that, you put passion into it,
Mhm.
um, you're going to change other people, and you're going to change yourself in the process.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. There were two things that you talked about. One is finding time for ourselves and taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, it took me a long time to learn that. And so I found in a success magazine years ago when I was teaching, it's called the Calm app, CALM. And
Yes.
and
Yes.
it was an article in Success magazine where I found it. And on the left-hand side, right inside the cover, they interviewed CEOs. And of course, at that time, it was mostly men. But the first one at the top was a gentleman who said, I have had to figure out how to give myself time to be able to be focused. And it was the calm app. So that's how I learned about it. And that a little 10-minute meditation every morning, or 3 times, my goal is at least 3 times a week, to sit outside in nature and listen to this, which is very, very nice. And it's all different topics. And it started out being free. I don't know if the app is free any longer, but it was free when I first started using it about 10 years ago or longer.
Yeah.
And the other thing you mentioned is to have close friends, close women friends.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard about the Blue Zones study. The Blue Zone study was done by a gentleman, I think his last name is Buettner, and he partnered with the National Geographic, and he did studies all over the world as to where people lived the longest and how they lived their life.
Yeah.
And so in one of those areas, I don't remember, it was Okinawa or Sardinia, there he found that women in that area, in that country, or that section of the country that he studied, they had what they called moyas, and I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but it was 5 close women friends that they had their whole entire life.
Oh, wow.
So as you talk about friendships, we all need to have 5 moyas in our lifetime.
Yeah. That must come from the same, you're only as good as your top 5 or something.
I'm not sure.
It might come with, that one might come with a little shame somehow. You're only as good as your top 5. But I do know what you're talking about, because that was that same article, right? That talked about also the different, was it the different things like in Asia where people live, different parts of the country maybe, or world maybe, where people, what they do that they live longer, right?
Exactly. And
higher power.
Yeah, there's 10, I think there's 9 or 10 main components. It's what you eat, and the fact that they are in countries where they don't drive every place, they walk to buy groceries. They grow their food, their vegetables and things. They eat basically a Mediterranean diet, and they don't eat till they're full or over full. It's the basics of living your life in moderation is about what it comes down to. So, but those 2 things came to mind as you were talking.
I agree. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Exactly.
Yeah.
And well, that self-care piece is so important, right? Because as women, especially, I know that if I start acting crazy in my house, that it's because I need some self-care, right?
Right.
And I'm taking care of everybody but myself. I'm good at taking care of everybody, but I really am working hard on being good at taking care of myself. And right when you think you've arrived, sometimes you miss stuff, right? So you have to, and that's where that women group helps too, is to, like, here we are reminding each other about taking care of ourselves, right?
Right. And that's something you don't really learn at a young age. I mean, it took me a long time to learn to do that. And so women are your basic caregivers, and we need to all teach our children, especially young girls, how to take care of themselves. It's like being on the airplane. You put your oxygen mask on you first, and then you put it on your children.
Yeah.
And so that's, to me, is the same concept.
And I think it's good to have those little concepts in your pocket so that on those rough days that you can pull them out as a reminder, right?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Oh wait, I'm supposed to put my oxygen mask on first, like, right? Because I think the reality is that we never fully arrive, and that we have to continue to work on these things and to remind each other and to lift one another up, and to be vulnerable and to be transparent and to work to truly be authentic, so that we can, I think that those are the components of true joy, right?
Yes, I think they are as well. So thank you so very much for your time today to come and visit with us and share your background and your wisdom. It's so awesome.
Thank you.
I guess one other question I might have, since you're a businesswoman, what would you suggest to as we're talking about suggestions for young women, if they had a passion to start a business, how would you recommend that what do they consider and how do they move in that direction?
I think that it's really good. The first thing you have to do is leap. You have to be willing to leap. That's the thing about business owners. Um, I think the greatest business owners have failed and failed maybe even a couple times. And there's a whole you can hear different people, celebrities talk about it, about falling forward, and that maybe there's no such thing as failure. And I think that's true. So you have to be willing to have some courage at because there's a lot of on the job training. And I think that doing a business plan is important. If you go to get a loan, you're going to need a business plan. But what I found beyond the loan, which was awesome, but also it helps you map out what your business is going to look like, from everything that you're designing to how you're going to manage your employees, to how you're going to manage your time, to what goals you have in the future. And I think that one thing I learned from my brother, he has a real estate business, is that you should do that business plan yearly because we're all ever changing. Um, and I think it's okay that one of the things about small business is sometimes people look at business owners and they think that they like, oh, Angela has this building in Old Town. It didn't start like that. You have to start small. And that's one thing I learned growing up in a family of business is that, and I think it's something that we need to remember again, is you start at the bottom and you work your way up. When I worked for my dad, I wanted to answer the phones, but I cleaned the rocks and trash on the property. I never made it to answering the phone because I went to beauty school. But I think that you have to be willing to build. Even if you're just cutting hair in a salon and you want to, and you go to booth rent, and the next thing you know, you own your own salon, or you're an educator, or that's just the salon part of it. But starting out small, some of the best businesses, look at Fat Tire starting in their garage. So it's just about starting, doing what you need to do, and it's going to be a sacrifice, because often people have to have two jobs because their business doesn't necessarily make the money that they can have in the beginning to live on. So it's a sacrifice and it's worth it. It's tireless, but I really believe small business is the heart of this country. And I encourage people. I think we're going to see, even though we've seen small businesses hurt, I really think that the future for a lot of young people is being in business for themselves.
I agree with you with that last statement you made. I do. Well, thank you so very much, Angela, for joining us today. I truly appreciate your time on your Saturday off to come and spend some time with me and with our guests. We have some hearts that have shown up. I don't see any questions yet, but people have enjoyed our conversation. So we thank you and all of our guests for joining us on this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. And thank you for doing this, because it's so great to hear everyone's voice. Tell your story, make your story known, share your voice. And Patty, you have always been an ambassador for women, and I'm so grateful to know you. And I'm so excited to see if anybody knows, like, starting out small, right? The Legacy Project. It's going to be big. I'm calling it as it is, and it's going to change a lot of women's lives. So thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. So join us next Saturday. And during this week, if you can make time, read the book White Fragility. Caridad Souza is the Dean of the Women's Studies Department at CSU. She's on my board for Living Her Legacy. She's going to lead a discussion of that book, White Fragility, right here on our Facebook and our YouTube channel. Same time, same station, 2 p.m. on Saturday. So you can pick it up on Audible and read it there as well. And if you don't want to buy it, it's $16. I found mine here in Fort Collins. And our YouTube channel is Living Her Space Legacy. Living Her is together, and then a space, and then Legacy. Or you can search for Women's Voices, and that pulls it up as well. So if you don't do Facebook, you can watch us on YouTube. So we invite you to join us in our movement to inspire girls' futures as we recognize women's accomplishments and change the way people think about women's and girls' contributions in our community. You can learn more at our website, livingherlegacy.org. We will be participating in Giving Tuesday this year with a Lifting Your Spirits house concert. So if you'd like to attend our concert, please register at the link in the chat box, the bit.ly link, and that will, I'll know to send you an invitation to that house concert with some wonderful local musicians. And also, you will be added to my email list. And as I mentioned in the chat box, we never share any information, and we maybe do updates monthly. So we don't over email anybody, because we all know ourselves, we get too many emails the way it is. So we try just to share information to keep you up to date. And we'll have a new speaker series beginning in January after we finish this current one. So you could be kept abreast of when that one begins as well. If you are interested in supporting our education programs, our donation space is Her Legacy FC for Fort Collins, donate.org. Her Legacy FC, donate.org. If you'd be interested in sharing a few dollars with us to support our girls age 5 or 5th graders through 19-year-olds and teen moms through our programs. I'll just give you a brief update on our programs. We're going to do 5th grade role model mentor art workshops, as I mentioned. I'm going to teach a Girl Leaders program for girls 16 to 19 and teen moms from underserved populations. And we were going to be able to start our role model mentor art workshops with the 5th grade girls in March, but of course COVID showed up, so we won't be able to do that until afterwards, because that has to be done in person. The Girl Leaders program I can start on Zoom. And I started contacting the high schools last spring, but then everything changed. And so I waited until after the school year got started, because both the students and the teachers are in a very challenging position. So I've heard back from about 4 out of the 6 high schools I've contacted within the last 3 weeks, and will be sending them applications for their girls to apply. I'm hoping to have the first class in the first part of December, and then start on a weekly basis in January on our Zoom Girl Leaders program. And if any of you are interested in being an adult speaker, adult female participant in the Girl Leaders program, let me know. You can also register at the bit.ly link, and I will send you information, and I welcome anybody who'd like to share with the girls in the program some wisdom from your life growing up. So we invite you to like our Facebook page, Her Legacy Women of Fort Collins, and our Instagram page, living_her_legacy, to follow us, share our social media pages, and project our new nonprofit with your colleagues, family, and friends. Thank you also very much for following our speaker series. We're so very grateful for your time on Saturdays. Thank you again for listening in today, and we hope you have a wonderful week, a wonderful, healthy week, and join us next Saturday at 2 p.m. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks again, Angela.
Thank you.